Hi everybody, welcome to Season 3, Episode 22 of the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Heighton, and Darren McAnthony, Chairman and Co-owner of Peterborough and Darragh, 3 on the bounce. Not a bad weekend for you?
Yeah, yeah. To be fair, yeah, it was. I was apprehensive, but you know when you read before a game, this team hasn't won. They've lost 8 in a row. The bottom of the table. We've been here so many times as clubs. You know, it's like I used to say we're the great starter-upper for somebody who's on a bad run. Mm-hmm. You need to get out of that run. Just fucking play. You know, it was kind of like that. And obviously you got Duncan's gone in there. They've signed 11 new players. So you always know players are going to run 30% more when there's a new manager. And then obviously the game starts and the pitch is like a basketball pitch. The ball is, bouncing and whatever else. So it was kind of one of them games where you were, it's a banana. 2 months ago, we lose the game.
Yeah.
Like we lose that game. Without a doubt, we lose that game like a couple of months ago or 5-6 weeks ago. We lose that game. We lose that game late and it's another stupid away defeat and da-da-da-da-da. But what we have got is a bit of resilience. What we really have is we've got experienced players have really shown up. Really shown up. Frankie Kent, Nathan Thompson, Dan Butler, Joe Ward, they've shown up. And what we also have is we have subs now impacting games. They're actually coming on at the right times in the right places and they're impacting games, whether it be Josh Knight or Bet on Saturday was fantastic. Ben Thompson, fantastic. Subs are coming on and doing what's required of them. And that really hasn't been a big thing for us this season, bar the first game of the season. The rest of the time it's been a nightmare. And it was one of them games where we controlled it. Our goalie hasn't made a save. I think he's made one save the whole game. We've never felt in danger. But they had a low block. They defended really well. They were stopping our outlets. Do you know what I mean? Like, if Joe Ward was dominating down the right, they stopped that then in the second half. Our left side wasn't really working. So you're kind of like, where's the goal coming from? Jack Taylor goes off injured. I'm holding my head in my hands when I see that, and hopefully it's nothing serious, but an ankle sprain. And then obviously we get a penalty. And then obviously Hector. And when injury time goes up, I have no idea the ref must have been watching the World Cup. Without no word of a lie, there was no time wasting. There was no injuries, really. Jack Taylor, yes. Substitute-wise, 5 minutes, 100%, yeah, typical 5. But 8 fucking minutes. Yeah. When I saw 8 minutes go up, my arsehole collapsed. I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then Hector, 5 minutes into injury time, is trying to keep the ball in the corner and somehow manages to wiggle out from 2 players, keep going. From an angle, he's never going to score. And then all of a sudden, it's in the top fucking the stanchion or whatever, the net. At that point, I'm like, fucking happy. I'll take it, So you take it. Probably you're in third gear. You do everything that's necessary. Really disciplined. We look good defensively. Dare I say that? Touch wood. We haven't looked good defensively this season. We always have a threat. We've missed a lot of chances in the game still, even though we're not at our best. So you take the wins. 3 out of 3, 4. Yeah, it's irrelevant. The problem has always been because of how bad we were in the first 3 games of the season. We're so far away from the playoffs, from the top 2. It's we won 4 and 5, and we're still not in the fucking playoffs. That's how bad we really were. When you see Plymouth,
signs of life now.
You've got
signs of life.
Look, when you see Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth 20 points ahead of you. That tells you how bad we've been, performance-wise this season with the squad we have. What you're now seeing is, you're right, there's signs of life, there's signs of belief, there's signs of an identity, there's signs of professionalism, the signs of everybody now knows the job in hand. I always said this to you, there's 19, 20 games left. We don't have the margin for errors. We always said this like a couple of months ago. It shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. We're out of that. Yeah. So we really need to keep winning, because your Barnsleys, your Boltons, your Wickhams, even they don't lose a lot of football games, and further ahead than that, Derby, who are just absolutely on fire, they're not going to lose a lot of football games in the last half of the season. So we have to keep the afterburners on. But 2 away wins, 2 away clean sheets. We never did that in the first half of the season. They're all those positive things. Massive game against Bolton on Saturday. Because that really tests you to see, like Bolton are one of the best teams in League One. That tests you and tells you how far you're coming. So that will answer a few questions, I guess, for us. Is all of this just a little bit of a run, or is this like serious promotion form? And if we get through February in good shape, starting on Saturday, you know, look out. And I've always said that, you know what I mean? Like, you always fancy somebody coming late to the party. So long way to go, but I feel better watching my football team. That's for sure. A lot better.
How's Darren feeling a month in?
Yeah, he's loving it. I think he's just enjoying coaching again. I think he's just enjoying being out off his couch. I think he's enjoying being around a group of very good players. I think he's enjoying. We spoke the other day, and he was saying how much he enjoyed like working with Hector on the training ground. You know, Hector is playing his best football since Darren's come in. So I think and he said to me, he said, you know, was it on Thursday? You know, he said, you still got an eye for a couple of good players with some of the signings you've made, you know, like Hector and players like that. And because obviously they came in after he left, you know, and I think he's just enjoying that vibe. Yes, winning always helps, but I think he really is thoroughly enjoying being in the grind of hopefully a promotion chase. So that's what he's here for. That's what he wanted to do. And hopefully he's got the tools at his disposal. Now, look, we've always said there's no excuses. We've got a really good squad. We ended the window in a good place, like in a really, really good place. We didn't lose any key, you know, squad players, people in the, I know Marriott went or whatever else, but he was bit part. You know, we feel the manager didn't lose any key assets. Jack Taylor didn't go. Johnson Clark-Harris didn't go. You know, Ronnie Edwards didn't go. You know, he was having palpitations 2 days before the window that he was going to lose any of those players. I'm not going to lie. Do you know what I mean? It was like, there was conversations, and he was like, we can't lose any of those players. We want to go up, can't lose any of those players. And I'm like, well, we're a League One football club. You know, if somebody makes a bid that the club deems proper, that's what's going to happen. You know, so I think he was very relieved when the window finished. So yeah, so it was a good window from that perspective.
Yeah. Do you think he's got a point to prove as well that he didn't get the jobs that he wanted over the last 6-9 months? And that's kind of given him, you know, whether a point to prove or added motivation.
I think secretly, in I'm not speaking for the manager, this would be my interpretation. So again, no salacious headlines. I don't want to be winding up other clubs' fans. I think secretly, if you're Darren, you look at clubs like Derby have gone and got a new manager. You look at, you know, clubs like, I don't know, who else would you call in there that's a big club in League One, and he never probably got a phone call or he never got a chance of an interview. And that would probably grate me as somebody who's won promotion multiple times from League One. You know, look, granted, Derby went out and got a guy who's got the same record as Darren when it comes to promotions from League One. So that was an easy one. But, you know, I think if an Ipswich job came up, if a Sheffield Wednesday job came up, and he was interviewed for those jobs and they were still in League One, I think he would have the right to feel aggrieved based on, people can argue about the Championship, you know, all that. Really, bar with us, he's never been with a club with real resources to give him a chance in the Championship. So you can't just say, oh, he's a shit manager in the Championship. And I think you have to go, he's a phenomenal manager in League One. He's a phenomenal manager in League Two. He's got multiple promotions from both those leagues. His teams score goals. His teams are always up there. So any club of size looking to get out of League One, looking to give a manager who plays progressive, attacking, offensive football, should interview him. And I've always said that. Like, you know, it's baffled me that clubs haven't tried to like go in and get him. So I think he has a point to prove. And I think, you know, again, he's thinking, you know, if he does the job, if he pulls it off, you know, if some miracle happens or whatever else, he's in a position of strength in the summer where maybe the clubs who didn't go or bigger clubs than us maybe want a new manager. They're going to look at him. So it works. It works for both sides. I know there were people laughing and making stupid jokes, you know, when I brought him back. And this isn't me saying I told you so, or me, you know, at the end of the day, it's 3 wins. It's no big deal. It's 3 wins. That's all. Let's not get carried away. But everything I wanted is happening as regards to, I feel confident going into games. I feel confident. I'm not worried about the football side of things. I'm not worried about the style of play. I'm not worried about getting the best out of certain players. And I feel we've got a nice structure now in place for that for the rest of the season. It gives me a break from worrying about that to focus on all the other important stuff going on off the field. So, you know what I mean? So, you know, we've got a big summer coming up, you know, at the end of the day. And if we don't get promoted, we're going to have to not rebuild, retool the squad. You know, key assets will be sold to reduce debt because you can't carry the level of debt we have in League One. We go up, we're still going to have to reduce debt. You know, we've overspent for the last few years. And, you've seen stuff come out today about Man City and stuff going on
Yeah.
in football. You know, we all have to live within the world of financial fair play and be as self-sustainable as we can be. So whilst we didn't sell any big assets for the kind of offers we were made before the deadline, you know, we will do that in the summer. It's not a fire sale, but there are players who've been here 2-3 years who are ready to go on to the next stage. And if we don't get to the champ, you know, that next stage is going to be with someone else. And we retool and we go again. And that's what we always do. And, you know, we lost Jack Marriott. We replaced him with Chimanga, you know, and I got his name right there. Somebody we watched before he broke his leg, you know, somebody that we were going to, you know, if we hadn't got promoted 2 years ago, we were going to sign him. Going to the championship, we stopped us from signing him because we felt it was a bigger step up.
Yeah.
But if we'd been in League One, he would have been signed. And Barry's loved him for years. And, you know, really the reason it took so long was I spent 2 days on the medical stuff, checking the leg, all the notes, the operation, the whatever else, mate, because you want to make sure that you've got somebody who's fit. And the fact he hadn't played a lot of Chesterfield, but that was more to do with that he was nearly gone in the last window, and they'd moved on and played without him, and the way they were going to play and the signings they made. But he's a posh type striker. You know, he's good age. He's you know, with all due respect to Jack wasn't getting the game time. He's 28. He wanted to move on. Andy Pelly at Fleetwood, they've made him a fantastic offer for 2.5 years. Fair play to them. And it just worked for both clubs. So that was a solid bit of business. Did you guys do anything on deadline day?
We brought in Sam Stubbs from Exeter, centre half, which seemed a curious one. You know, he's been injured as well, and it's not an area that I felt that we had particular weakness. But you know, maybe there's some longer term play when we lose the loan players that we have at the end of the season. On that one, we let go Levi Sutton, who went to Harrogate. We were supposedly we had somebody that was awaiting EFL clearance to bring in, but I guess we didn't bring them in. We didn't do the deal in time for the deadline, so we lost them. So no idea who that was. No.
Right. Okay. Wow. Yeah. When I see things like that, the Blackburn stuff with Forest,
I know, right?
The things that don't get
Lewis O'Brien.
Yeah. I mean, that would be what a signing that would have been for Blackburn, by the way. I mean, you know, that could be the difference between going up. You know, so God bless the guy who didn't, whatever paperwork wasn't filled in. You know, I mean, I'd be furious if that happened to my club. You know, but you know, we got Liz, who's as good as they come when it comes to processing and getting all the paperwork in on time and getting it done. And even the deals we had done, there were late glitches in them. You know, Tomlinson, who went to Swindon, who was originally going to Gillingham, and then his agent and him were like, Swindon came up. And then obviously Joe Taylor to Luton. There was last minute hitches that we had to get some documents from previous medicals. You know, the previous physio had left. Liz came up with the sensible idea of going into our mail server to pull up emails where all the info was done. You know, she's brilliant for stuff like that. You know, last minute glitches with even the Chimanga deal. And again, I have to say, full credit to her for the job she did. She's like one of the best. Really, really good. So yeah, it was a funny day, you know, from that perspective, with stuff going on and whatever. And I had agents on, like, of players who wanted to go on loan, you know, whatever. I was just like French agents. The players ring. I said to them, have they got my number? I was back to back. I had like player, agent, and then the club that wanted a loan and like texted me. And I was like, with all due respect, unless you're buying the player, I'm not sending them a loan. So like, no, you know, and that was just going on, and it kind of got busy for about 5 hours, and then it slowed right down. And yeah, so it was an interesting window. Anything stood out to you that was like an unbelievable signing lower down the pyramid?
Not really lower down the pyramid. There was nothing that stood out. There were a couple of things, you know, at the top that I was interested in. Obviously, you know, everyone's talking about Enzo Fernandez going to Chelsea for 107 million after being signed in August for 10 million. I mean, it's interesting that they're giving out these, you know, baseball and NFL style 8.
I get that.
Contracts.
I get it. You're paying the money over. I said this the other day. You know, I've always, you know, done the, you know, we've punched above our weight in transfer fees because we've done over time. So, you know, £1 million for striker, but it's really 200 grand this year. You know, Son Malonga cost us £1 million. I only ever paid 200 grand because he was gone within a year. So you make a calculated, even though we would have been committed to paying and we paid the rest.
But you're amortizing it over the length of the contract.
Right. Dwight Gale, it was at 500 grand over 48 months. So if you can find clubs that are okay doing it, you'll give a bit more in transfer fee as long as it's over time. Player might only be worth 600 grand, 700 grand, but you go, look, I'm going to make it $1 million. I'm going to throw in some add-ons, but it's over time. So I get whether, if Chelsea spend 600 million and basically all that money is over 6-7 years, it's 100 million a year for a club that size, I've seen the criticism of Chelsea and I disagree. I think what they're doing is right. They've written off this season. They see this season basically as like a scratch season. They're not going to get into Europe. They're not going to get in the Champions League. They're not going to win the league. They're not going to win cups. So what they've done basically is they've gone out and signed a profile of player with a certain age. They're spreading the money over time. They're playing the financial fair play cleverly, and they know that really what are they missing come summertime? They're probably missing now a striker. Striker's the next big one. Because if you look at every other area of the pitch, centre back, left back, right back, they have got so much strength and depth. Central midfield, 10, out wide. What they now need is a number 9. Now they need like an attacker. They're probably going to have to spend 100 million on one of them. But then they're done. They are done for 3-4 years because the age of the players, the improvement in those players. And then from now on, they might go and spend, 30-40 million every summer on a couple of younger players from wherever in Europe. But what they sell and bring, when they sell players, and they will sell some side players from the squad, like they nearly sell Gallagher for 45 million. All they need to do is 1-2 of those every summer, and it's making up for the 100 million they're spent. And from what I've heard about the salaries aren't 200-300 grand a week like you've seen some of the clubs. The salaries are 80-90 grand. So I actually like what they're doing. I think it's clever. I think it's prudent. They're buying the best young talent. Whether Potter's there to see it come to fruition, that's another guess. He has to start winning games because a bit like my Liverpool, they're more talented than Liverpool, and they should be winning games, and they're not. So I do like the policy. I like reading the stories. The Argentinian guy's not worth 100 million. Now, if he turns out to be absolutely sensational, then he's worth 100 million. But it's a hell of a gamble. Cucurella wasn't worth 60 million. So they're going to overpay for a few deals. But some of the deals I've seen them do, actually, I think they've underpaid on some of the players. So you might pay 100 million for this guy, and you might have only paid 30 for him. Yeah. So when you start bringing it in, it's not so bad. And I think they're built to be. They'll be in 2 years' time. They could be monstrous. They'll have the best young talent playing. They could be sensational. So I like it. As a Liverpool fan, I'm absolutely fucking jealous. The two things I always say to you, envy's good, jealousy's horrible. I'm jealous and envious. I'm watching us get battered by Wolves on Saturday, and I'm just like fucking. I've seen all the shouts for Klopp out and whatever else, and I'm like, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Like, change the whole squad.
Yeah. It's like what you always talked about with Darren the first time around. You went with the manager, not the players, when it was time to refresh the players.
100%. Yeah, I waited nearly 30 years to watch us win a title again. Change the manager? Are you fucking mad? Like, who are we bringing in? Yes, someone comes in tomorrow. Liverpool will win a few more games because suddenly the players will maybe run a few extra yards and all that fresh enthusiasm, whatever. Won't solve the problems. Those players will still be too old and past their prime in the summer. I'm watching it, and again, some of the Liverpool podcasts sometimes get my comments out there, and it makes me look like I'm attacking Liverpool, and I'm not. I'm a massive fan of Jurgen. As a fan, as an owner of a football club, I can see the problems he's got. I can see what he's dealing with. I can see the heights they hit last year. They've come off that drug. They've been weaned off the style, the success, the hard yards. They ran it for 3, 4, 5 years. It was hardcore, and now they're burnt out. And lots of those players are burnt out. So now what you do is you move on. And what they've got to do is top 10 finish, get the train back on the tracks, which he'll do. And then in the summer, without a word of a lie, he has to don't be loyal. You've got to let 6, 7, 8 players go. He needs a refresh in the squad. So you've got a lot of young new players coming in who will buy into what he wants them to do. Because he's a hard manager. I always said about Bielsa, he's a hard manager to play for in the way he wants you to train and play. And I think you can get 3 years out of players, 4 years at a max. You start going past 4 and 5, it's a problem. The other thing that would probably justify why Liverpool, I was thinking about this on Saturday, they get a lot of criticism for selling their best players. Suarez, Coutinho, like that and whatever. But you look at some of the players where they've changed that tack now, and they've kept the Firmino, they've kept the Salah, they've kept, you know, some of their players past 30. They've paid them massive big contracts, and you're like, was it better if they went at 28 and you replay it? You know, if we'd sold Mo Salah a year ago and maybe got 60 million, 70 million, 80 million from Mo Salah, because I'm watching Mo Salah at the moment, and he's the other side of 30. He's on $500,000 a week. And I'm a Mo Salah fan, but I don't recognise him. Yeah, the team's not playing well, but he plays a big part of that. I mean, he can't hold the ball up to save his life. He can't. His chance per scoring ratios dropped way off a cliff. And then you're like, well, I've got another 2.5 years of him on $500,000. Does that get better as you go past 30?
Yeah.
Some players, I think, in attacking areas, I think Harry Kane would be like Lewandowski. He'll play till his mid-30s. He'll score a lot of goals. Player like Salah, where the game's pace, agility, fitness, pressing, as you get older. And again, I'm not writing him off, but I'm just looking at it going, you know.
It's interesting when you compare it to Mane, because I saw this, you know, today about people saying, well, did we let Mane go too early? And actually, that's an example of kind of, you know, making that decision to move on.
Move on, 28, 29, move on from them. You know, last year maybe would have been the time saying, you know, instead of giving Mo the new contract, cash in, you know, sometimes you got to accept is if you don't plan for it, it's going to be a year. You know, you're looking in the summertime, Milner, Henderson. I mean, Fabinho, he was ill the other day apparently, but I'm not sure he could get in the under 21 team the way he's playing at the moment. You know, Thiago, I'm watching against Wolves. Like, the only one who impressed in there was that kid, Bjanic or whatever he's called. He was the only one. I mean, you know, I feel for Jurgen. He's getting like hammered from all directions. And, you know, the most colossal thing would be to lose him would be devastating, I think. You know, yeah, you get someone to come in and win a few games, but you won't have that kind of domination. So my thing would be back him through a rebuild and come out and say it's a rebuild and put all those players on notice that nobody is irreplaceable. Nobody is basically immune to what's happening in the summer. So you're all fighting for the future. So you can either step up or you're gone. So that, you know, that's my thing on it. But yeah, the Premier League, I mean, Man City today, that's all blown up.
I've only read the FA statement, you know, and it's a lot of clauses which mean nothing, but it also seems, you know, without going deeper, but it also seems like I wouldn't expect the FA to make a statement like that without feeling like they had overwhelming evidence to support it. And if that's the case, then, you know, you gotta kind of think this is a time bomb that's been waiting to go off for Man City for a long, long time. You know, practices that have been suggested but never proven, but have obviously never gone away. And the fact that there's no right of appeal to this process means that, you know, there could be some trouble ahead for them.
I don't know the ins and outs, and it would be remiss of me to suddenly criticize or comment on clubs like that. But some people call it financial doping and whatever else. But I'm sure whatever they're accused of, a lot of other clubs are looking over their shoulders. You know, who've maybe done the same, and it's not been pushed on them. I read about people saying they should be relegated. Fuck off. The EFL doesn't need Man City in the EFL winning 46 games in a row. All right, that's unfair to everyone. EFL, the way that
maybe a good payday.
Yeah, no, that's not fair. So Arsenal really are the ones who are going to cash in on this. You know, they shit the bed obviously against Everton, and then City lost against Spurs.
Yeah,
it's really written in the stars for Arsenal to win the league this year. So, and I guess it's typical Liverpool's luck. We had like the most dominant Man City side for years, stopped us win 2 or 3 titles. And that one down year Man City potentially have, or they got all these issues, and Liverpool are fucking, you know, in the bottom half of the league. So it's really Arsenal's to win. But I think, you know, you read all the headlines, you read all the what ifs, you know, you got to let it play out. They've got to defend themselves. The Premier League and the FA and the charges, that's all going to play out in court. Yes, you're right. They can appeal it to CAS or CAS or whatever it's called, the appeals thing.
Arbitration for sport.
Yeah, but I'm sure they can appeal to the Premier League if anything happens. I'm sure there's an appeals process there. So let's see how it plays out. If they're found guilty, they're going to get whatever the punishment is. That's just the way it works. But don't rush to judgment is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I imagine it's not going to be a short process either.
No. Well, I guess where you want it to be a short process is if there's things you've done wrong, you go, look, we're not winning the league. So let's take something now. Let's deal with it this week. so it doesn't carry over next season. You're going to hit us for the points deduction, do it now. Hit us for the fine, do it now. What you don't want is that next season. Do you get what I mean? Like, if you're not winning the league, you're like, I want to get hit now. So that's kind of like, if I were Man City, that's what I'd be thinking. You know, I don't want this dragging on a year. I don't want. Can you imagine next year you're winning the title, you're 20 points clear, and then it's like, oh, actually, you're not going to win the title. Well, players would rather know. The management staff would rather know. You know, sometimes I don't like the fact these things take so long as a process to play out. You know, so that would be my thing on that. So, yeah.
And I would wonder if Pep would want to hang around if it's going to be a 12, 18-month protracted process too.
I don't think he'd leave them in the lurch, because I think he's got a great relationship with people behind the scene. I don't think he's that guy. So, you know, I mean, speaking of jobs, I see Jesse March, he lost his job today, didn't he? Leeds fired him. So, do we know who the favourite is to go in there, or is Big Sam?
No, I mean, I was just reading about it beforehand, and it's interesting because you talked about Bielsa earlier. It felt like whoever went in there, much like post Ferguson at Man United, whoever went into Leeds post Bielsa was going to fail. It was just how long it's going to take.
Yeah, I think the argument would be that they've recruited some really good players. A bit like Southampton. You look at Southampton, and you're like, they've recruited some really, really good players to have lost like 7 and 8 or whatever else with the squad they've now put together. It's the same with Leeds. You know, you look at some of the players they've got. They should, and then you look at Forest, who are flying now, and fair play. The Forest hierarchy have had a lot of criticism, but they stuck by their manager. You know, yes, they've signed a lot of players. I'm sick of reading about, it's like some sort of a joke that, oh, they've signed another player. They're a Premier League club. You know, they knew they needed major construction, and it was a big job. And Steve Cooper has absolutely done a magnificent job, you know, with that job. And they'll stay up. So
it would have been easier for them to sack him when they were bottom and they could win together.
100%. So no, fair play to the ownership, fair play to him, and fair play to the Forest players. They're tough to beat at home, you know. And that's the recipe for staying in the Premier League. You know, like winning at home, clean sheets at home. No, it's interesting, you know. And then you look at Bournemouth, hell of a lot of business done on deadline day. You know, 20 million quid for a Ukrainian centre half I've never heard of. Do you know what I mean? And you know, sometimes I look at the figures thrown out for young players, and then people say, "Oh, your players are overpriced in the EFL." And I'm like, really? Like, fucking, like, I see some of the deals done. Let's plug another striker from France for 28 million, and a player from Portugal, and you know, and it's kind of like, Jesus Christ. I mean, the money again that went out of January, that out of our country, is just like phenomenal. You're scratching your head sometimes when you see it.
And I was just looking, there's 4 points between Bournemouth in 19th and Leicester in 14th. So, you know, it's pretty tight down there. It was interesting, talk about transfer deadline. It was interesting to see Weston McKennie come from Juventus to Leeds, because I like the look of him. What's that?
You like him?
I thought I liked the look of him during the World Cup. That's the only time I really came across him. But you don't think he's Premier League quality?
No. No. Not from what I saw in the World Cup. No, I don't. But listen, I'd be proved wrong. He's obviously, a lot of the Americans have gone to Germany and done really well, haven't they? And then come through, you know, Germany to. I like the other guy Leeds have more in the American team, is Arneson or whatever else. I actually like him.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I actually love the midfielder, Tyler, the captain, Adams. Is it Tyler Adams?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
really like him. My pal is now temporary in charge of the US team, Anthony Hudson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good
I didn't
pal
see that sector managed well. His contract expired, didn't he? But I didn't see they'd made a movement on that.
Ant's a coach, obviously, from England, who's been working in the under-21s and under-23 setup. He was with the squad in the World Cup. And he's an Englishman living in Chicago, I believe. And now he messaged me. I congratulate him. So I believe you're taking the team for a couple of months. And he was like, yeah, we've got a training camp in March. Come down and see us. I don't know if they're down at Disney or whatever else. So, yeah, I was laughing when I saw that, you know. He's doing really well. So I was happy for him. Because the US, I think they've got some great young players. They do. Yeah. I think it's changed this year. I think in a few years' time, they could be a force at the next World Cup. But as regards to who replaces your man at Leeds, no idea. While we're recording, they might have hired someone for all I know.
Yeah.
And by the way, the championship is done and dusted, isn't it? I mean,
Burnley looks like it.
Yeah. I mean, United and Burnley are pretty much out there, aren't they?
Yeah, and you know, full credit to Middlesbrough for pulling it up to third in the table. And I look at this and Luton, I mean, I haven't looked at the table for a few weeks. So you got Middlesbrough third, Luton fourth, both on 48 points. I mean, Luton have followed up last year with it wasn't a one-season wonder.
Well, what Luton are showing you is it wasn't Nathan Jones per se. It's just the club. It's the style. It's the way they are. It's Mick Harford's such an important. And I apologise for misspelling his name on Twitter the other day when I spoke about Joe Taylor going there. But they're just such a well-run football club, and fair play to them. Like, you know, everything they do really well. And Gary Sweet, who's the CEO, again, we were dealing with him before deadline day and whatever else. And again, they're a pleasure to deal with. There's no messing about. There's no changing things. There's just like straight down that's it. And to be fair to them, that was the quickest we've ever been paid on a transfer. Usually when you do a transfer, it's like a day or two. I mean, they'd sent over a thing with the money like bang. It was like that, you know. So now really happy for Luton and their fans. They're a club that's just like, they make everyone else in the EFL proud that they just can, you know, you want to say they're punching above their weight, but 2 years in a row in the playoffs, they're no longer punching above their weight.
No, they've built that level now.
Yeah, that's the norm for Luton. So they're doing really well. Drop down to League One, Sheffield Wednesday. Wow, what a run they're on! I mean,
what a crowd! Did you see any of the? I saw a clip from that was doing the rounds on Twitter of pre-game there.
I mean, wow! I mean, I'd like to have some of that gate money. I mean, it's just like, was it 33,000 or whatever it was? You know, it's like, yeah. I mean, obviously we've got to go and play at their place, but I mean, they are. You know, I always talk about big clubs catching fire.
Yeah,
you know, they have officially caught fire when you're supposed to have 5-6 clean sheets in a row. They're just winning every week. You know, and to be fair, Plymouth aren't mugs. They've been on top of the table all season for a reason. It's still going to be interesting. I think it will be like, you know, a close race between, obviously Derby are hunting them down. Ipswich have stuttered a little bit, but they're not that far behind Ipswich. They could still come good. But I do think Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday are like away in their own league there, aren't they? It's fascinating, really, when you look at it.
Yeah, although I think it's going to come down to form. You know, when you look at Plymouth, I'd say a month ago we thought it was a done deal just for those two, and Bolton coming through, Derby won the last 5. They may go back further than that, but I only have the details of the last 5 here. And 8 points is not unsurmountable, games in hand. So I think it could still be interesting.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you get the squeaky arse time. 8 points is nothing. 8 points is basically 7 days of 3 games. You know, so you're absolutely correct. I mean, you like to think people don't just win every game, you know, and it's going to get tighter. But who knows? Look, Plymouth, for the start they've had and they did last year, you want them to, you know, do well. But yeah, like you said, the big clubs now, the Derbys, you know, they're there. They're like breathing fire. Do you know what I mean? And smashing teams to bits. And then obviously behind, well, you got Ipswich, obviously. Who I don't know. They seem to Ipswich. When you look at a lot of the metrics, they're top of the league for a lot of stuff. You know, like positive statistics and whatever. So when I look at the analysis and the stats, and then you see them in the league, you're kind of like, I'm not sure what the missing thing is there. But they're certainly creating enough chances. They're certainly, you know, playing good enough football. You know, maybe they catch fire in the second, you know, the last 2-3 of the season. So we've got to play them all. So it's going to be interesting. I think we play Wednesday away. We play Plymouth at home. We play Derby at home. We play Barnsley away. We play Bolton at home. Have I missed anyone in the top 6 there? I think I've got everyone. You know, we've got 4 at home and 2 away out of the top 6. So, you know.
And I guess it's better to be playing them now. Now, you know, as you're getting some form back.
We got killed by the EFL fixtures. We played a lot of teams. I could see it. You know, we played a lot of them away from home, like the first half of the season. So although we've had not the greatest first half of the season, we've played a lot of those teams away. And now what we have is in the second half of the season, we're playing a lot of the top 8, 9, 10 teams in the league at our place. And we're playing a lot of the bottom 7, 8 teams away from home. Like we've just played obviously Forest Green away from home. So, you know, our away form wasn't great in the first half of the season. So what you'd like to see is home form stays where it is and consistently winning games. And the away form is 3-4 times better than the first half of the season.
Yeah.
And then it kind of all makes sense. Do you know what I mean? I still say the fixtures were not kind to us in that first half of the season. So let's see. There's going to be a lot of tired legs from March onwards.
I want to shout out for Shrewsbury. Again, I only see the last 5 games, but they've won all 5 of them.
What a run.
And also Exeter. We've talked about a lot about them being a well-run club, and they've come up and they've not struggled. I mean, they're doing really well, and I think full credit to them. They're 11th in the table at the moment.
Lost their best player. I don't know if you saw that. He's had issues off the pitch. He was one of the lads we had in our youth system, Giovanni Brown.
Okay.
He scored all their goals and made all their goals, and they dropped him on Saturday because he's got issues off the field. And I believe they put a statement out today saying they're not going to pick him while that's ongoing. So I guess that's the modern day of the world where and I don't want to go down that route of Mason Greenwoods, the guy Mendy and people else, but I guess a lot of these players now are, whether they're charged or not charged, clubs decide not to play them or not to pick them. The world's a different place now, where obviously I would say years and years ago, until you were actually charged, until you were found guilty, I think people didn't know. Your name wasn't out there. You still went to work. Obviously nowadays it's a case of anything suggested, anything that's, if you're pre-arrested but you're not charged, straight away you lose your sponsors. Obviously your name's out there. Your football club doesn't pick you. How do you feel about all that?
I'm a big believer in you're innocent until you're proven guilty. And I do think that it would probably it's better that these things are not known and that justice plays its course than we make decisions based without all full information and complete information.
Would you be allowed to go to work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, until you're proven guilty, then, isn't that the society, isn't that the justice system that we live in?
That's what I mean. But it seems to be there, and again, you have to tread carefully because obviously it's happened to some of these women and you got the Ryan Giggs thing, you've got the Mendy thing, you've got obviously the Greenwood thing. And by the way, I'm not saying the Exeter, I've no idea what Giovanni Brown did. Do you know what I mean? I've no idea. I haven't even read about it. So he's broken club disciplinary, whatever else, and that's why they're not picking him. So I don't know what the perfect answer is, Phil. Do you stand people down? Do you not pick them? Do you not pay them? Do you not do whatever else until they're found innocent or guilty? I mean, I don't know. Like you said, 20 years ago, you would still go to work.
I mean, well, that's part of the problem. It becomes fact, doesn't it? Without, speculation becomes fact.
100%.
And it's all life, whether it's the politics we talk about, whether it's anything that's out there. Once it becomes like that's the narrative, it's really hard, whether that's true or not, to actually overcome that with the truth.
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah. What about the League Two race? Orient had a good win this weekend. Stevenage, I think, drew. Your beloved Bradford. What happened in injury time, Philip? Were you watching as you were at your son's sports day? Yeah,
well, fortunately, I missed the first half, but I'm kind of watching the first half, but the second half I get to watch in full. So it was one of those games where Mansfield had to make 5 subs by half time. So they had 3 injuries in the first half that they had to make subs for. And then because they wanted to make more changes and they only had one other opportunity to make those changes, which was half time, they made 2 more at half time. So, with that said, you'd think they're kind of all over the place in terms of how they set up to play versus where they find themselves. It was a game which I think we deserved to win, but didn't put to bed. We had 18,000 there again, incredible crowd for League Two game. And you think it was our first home Saturday game for 77 days or something like that.
Oh, ludicrous.
And you think all the stars are aligned, that we got a big crowd, we're back at home on a Saturday, a win against a promotion contender, and of course we just couldn't hang on. And it's a story of the season. There's some stats that were going around afterwards about, if the games ended at half time, we'd be joint top. If you took only second half performance, we're something like 21st or 22nd. We just don't have the ability to kill teams off.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
So really frustrating.
I mean, how long injury time went up?
From memory, it was 5 or 6 minutes, I think. But they scored in the first minute of injury time, so it wasn't because there was protracted injury time or anything.
Okay. So
you could see it coming. They got back into the game, and you could see the momentum shifting, and it became hold on to what we've got.
Are you not fit? Do you not fit where you run over?
I don't know, because you question, why does that happen? Why are you so strong in the first half and so weak in the second half? Is it fitness? Is it
a Mark Hughes thing? Have you looked into his record? Sometimes you want to dig deep into things and whatever else. Has anyone looked at his record? I mean, obviously, where is he? City, Southampton, Stoke. That his teams predominantly do well in first halves, and but sometimes you can see it. You can see patterns. You can look into it and analyze and go, well, actually, one of your weaknesses as a manager, as a player, you don't do it in the final thirds of games. Is that on you, tactics-wise, substitutions-wise? All those little, because the press for our manager before the game talk about, the amount of late goals you can see, and then you're watching the game and the fucking commentators going on about when the 8 minutes go up, Peterborough don't score late goals, and they concede a lot, and you're like, shut the fuck up, shut up. These commentators are already off their trolley anyway, saying the penalty was the most obvious penalty you've ever seen in your fucking life. I don't know what game they're watching sometimes, but again, you're like, why say it? Why put that shit out there? I'm already sat there absolutely shitting a brick. And then out comes the old, let's tempt fate right here, Bob. This guy like, panic stations, shit. So I don't know. So maybe there's something in Sparky's career. I don't know. But 18,000 fans should be giving you a 1-0 start week. Is your home record one of the best in the league or not?
No, not this. I mean, we've always had this issue when we were really going up the leagues. Back in the Phil Parkinson, even early Stuart McCall days, we were, on the kind of path back to the championship. We were unbeatable at home. It really was, the place to come and the fortress and all those things. As you get lower in the league, and we found this the last time we were stuck in League Two with big crowds, it became a hindrance rather than a help. And so there was a lot of talk about recruiting players who could, manage in that atmosphere and that expectation. And it tends to work against us rather than work for us at the moment.
What's your capacity, if you don't mind me asking?
26,000.
Shit, so you'd be knocking that out at the top of League One, right? You'd be getting 25,000.
Well, I don't know. Last time we were there, it was probably 20, 21. But the fact that we're getting 18 now in League Two,
if you're top two and scoring goals for fun, you're going to bring out everything. Yeah. Christ. Anyway, look, you got to go, right? Because you got you got to work at 4 o'clock. So we're going to have to cut it short. We're going to try and squeeze one in next week before I head off to Dubai on work and a little bit of holiday with the wife. But then we might take a break for a couple of weeks. So, but thank you all for listening. Let Phil get on with his work because he's building a successful company and doing very well. Very proud of him. So, any questions, any emails, any whatever else, send them into...
Keep them coming. contact@hardtruthfootball.com. We have a bunch that are lined up that we've got over the last couple of weeks that we just haven't had a chance to ask in the show. But we do keep them all. We keep track of them all, and we'll bring them up as soon as we can. So keep them coming.
Maybe to the next week, we'll maybe focus half more on questions and half on football. And, we need some posh and Bradford win doubles. We need plenty of them in a row. I like match games. Brilliant. All the best.
All right, thanks everyone. Take care.